Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A where I'm going to be tackling some interesting catamaran sailing questions, regardless of what type of catamaran it is that you are sailing, whether it's a Hobie, a Nacra, a Prindle, a Dart, a Taipan, a Windrush 14, or perhaps even anything else. There are a lot of different types of catamaran out there, which is actually where we are going to start today, because this is a question that comes up quite often, but I do feel that there are more than one answers to the same question. And this is the question of which type of catamaran is the right one for a certain situation, for a certain type of person looking for a certain type of catamaran sailing boat, which is going to tick the majority of the boxes. So this question has come in from Diego Manub. Oh, I can't pronounce that. Okay, from Diego, who says, I want to get back into sailing. That is a great start. Diego says, I used to compete in single-handed monohull Europe class sailing. A catamaran seems like a good option, as it would allow me to sail with friends and could have double the fun. Oh yes, you're speaking my language. I'm looking for a fast, stable platform that I could occasionally solo sail as well. This is the big word. It must be cheap. Yes. Easy to maintain and abundant in the second-hand market in France and Spain. Okay, so we have got some great options there. I'd just like to say a big shout out straight away to Hussein for coming in with a super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. Yes, you can help to keep the Q&A ad free by clicking on that super sticker button, let's call it, and it means that you are sponsoring the Q&A. So hello to Hussein in Egypt, and also hello to Patricia. Keep up the entertaining and useful Q&As. Yes, if the questions keep coming, I'll keep going with the answers. Thank you very much for supporting the cause. So there are different types of catamaran, and the first thing that comes to mind when choosing a something that is going to tick the boxes for sailing with friends and sailing solo is the size of the boat. And I think it kind of depends a bit on how much weight you are looking to put on the boat when sailing with more than one person on board. So I'm just going to do a quick conversion. So if you're looking to sail quite consistently with more than 140 kilograms, which is 310 pounds, if you speak that kind of language, then if you're consistently going to be sailing with more than that weight, so let's do it, 140 kilos, so greater than 140 kilos, then you probably want to be looking at something in the 18 feet or 5.5 meters. Let's call it 5.5 meters, 5.5 or bigger, if you're going to be sailing more often on a boat that is that on a boat that size, if you're going to be sailing more often with that sort of weight. Whereas if you're going to be sailing with less than 140 more often, then, oh gosh, I've dug myself a hole here, because I know that 18 feet is 5.5. What is 16 feet? 4.8. So let's call that 5.0 or minus. So that is the first thing that I would say is a good starting point. The size of the boat. Now, why do you want a smaller boat if you're going to be sailing with less weight? Well, less weight might also mean sailing more often single-handed. And one thing that can get overlooked when sailing single-handed is how are you going to get the boat out of the water when you've finished? Because yes, granted, there are some sailing facilities that have where's a good space down here, where if this is the water, then coming out of the water, you've got a really nice gentle slope like that, which means that it'd be quite easy to get the boat out of the water, even a relatively heavy boat single-handed. Whereas if you've got a nasty steep beach like this, then to get anything bigger than a 5-meter boat out of the water is going to be difficult alone. So this is definitely a consideration. Yeah, something to keep in mind. So that is why I would say if you are going to be sailing more single-handed, then a 5-meter or 16 feet or smaller boat would be a good option. And to keep it fun and easy and low maintenance, I would certainly opt for a boat which doesn't have, well, which basically has fewer moving parts. Oh, by the way, everybody in the live chat, I will be coming on to your comments and questions as soon as I've finished this opening piece about what we're talking about here, and then I will come on to the live chat. Yeah, so fewer moving parts means less potential maintenance. So to do away with the types of boat with centerboard or daggerboard is definitely a lower maintenance option. So the ideal, you could say, is the skeg hull type boat, which it's that arguably the easiest to sail. It's much more durable than a centerboard or daggerboard hulled asymmetric boat. Symmetrical hulled boat, and easier to sail. You can run them up the beach. Not all of them. I'll come on to this. And much easier to sail than the types of catamaran with an asymmetric hull. All right. How are we getting on so far? Pretty good. So let's just name some names here. So for skeg hulled boats, I have noticed in the live chat the Topaz 14 has been mentioned. So yes, Topaz 14. Topaz 14, if you're going to be more single-handed or sailing with a lighter weight team, or it could be the Topaz 16 as well if you're sailing with a slightly heavier weight team. Basically, the reason to go up a size of boat would be if you are going to be sailing with more weight on board. Now, the construction of the Topaz, which is also the same as the Dart 16 or the RS 14 or 16. The RS, probably less likely to find one because that is a newer type of boat which is around, or the GETAWAY, to name but a few, or the Hobie T2. These are all roto molded boats, which means plastic hulled boats, which basically means they are going to last forever, the actual hulls. Just like to give RJ Fleet a shout out for getting on board with the Super Sticker initiative, helping to keep the Q&A ad free. Thank you very much, RJ Fleet. These would all be fine choices, but the thing with the roto molded boats is, for the size of the boats, they are going to be slightly heavier than a traditional fiberglass hull. It's kind of like a balance between durability and weight. So the fiberglass hull is going to be lighter but less durable, and potentially requiring more occasional maintenance, like especially with the perhaps most popular skeg-hold boats of all time, I think, which would be the Dart 18 or 15, which very much have this skeg hull shape. But on the Dart 18 or 15, the skeg part of the hull especially is quite fragile. Like, even if you just rested it down in a concrete slipway just for a second, there is a chance that some of it would be missing afterwards. So much more fragile. But the Dart 18 really does tick a lot of boxes because it's relatively lightweight and it sails just as well single-handed as it does with two people. But if you wanted to sail with 3 or 4 people on board, the Dart 18 and 15 are lower volume for the size than some of the other boats, like the Dart 16, much higher volume for the size of boat. And in fact, all of the roto molded boats, much more volume for the size of boat. And when we're talking about volume, if English isn't your first language, then the volume relates to how much, in the way that we're talking about it, it relates to how much weight can you put on the boat before it starts to sink down in the water. So of all of this list, the lowest volume would be the Dart 15. Now, the new favorite of Joyrider TV in the skeg hull department has got to be the Nacra 500. Now, the Nacra 500, which I believe before it was called the Nacra 500, it was called the Nacra 5.0. Very similar boat, but this is a really nice skeg-hold boat, very easy to sail, but with a performance edge. It kind of gives you that feeling that you are on a performance boat, but it is a skeg-hold boat which is easy to sail. And the 500 is a really nice choice because it's got plenty of volume, so you could sail quite happily with 3 people on board, but it is a light enough boat to be able to sail nicely single-handed as well. So it really is a boat that I think, of all of the catamarans that I've sailed, it ticks the most boxes because of this versatility, of different skill levels that it is attractive to, and this ability to be able to sail single-handed and with others as well. That really is nice. Sorry, we only touched on the Getaway, by the way. The Getaway is the party boat. There we go. It's nice to write party boat when there is a party boat on the board, and that is the Getaway. All right, that's all you need to know about the Getaway. So if you're going to be sailing more with more than 140 kilos or 310 pounds on the boat, then the bigger version of the 500 is the 570, or before that, the 5.7. And yeah, basically a bigger version, which is going to carry weight better. But again, with these bigger boats, the ones 5.5 meters or bigger, we then have to start considering how easy is it going to be to get it out of the water. And this is something that the Dart 18 does that other boats don't do so well, because the Dart 18 feet 5.5 meters is light enough so that you could pull it out of the water single-handed more easily than pretty much, I think, any other 18-foot double-handed or this versatile boat. Because of what, if I didn't say double-handed, then A-class sailors might get involved and say, oh yeah, but my A-class is under 100 kilos and that's 18 feet long. Yeah, but you wouldn't want that. The A-class, fabulous, really, really good single-handed boat, but is it a party boat? No, it's just for going alone or with lightweight folks on board. Now, another one in this 18 feet or 5.5 meter bracket, which I've just seen Nicholas has just mentioned, is the Pacific. The Hobie Pacific. The Hobie Pacific is one of the heavier boats on this list. And the problem with the Pacific, great boat if you're more often sailing with more people on board. But the problem with the Pacific is this part of Diego's question: abundant in the second-hand market. The likelihood of you being able to find a used Hobie Pacific for sale is pretty rare. I would guess, this is really a guess, but I would guess there weren't more than, I don't know, that many more than 500 Pacifics, maybe 1,000 at the most, produced globally at all. So the likelihood of being able to find one used, because people who have Pacifics, they love their Pacific, and are they going to sell it? It's unlikely, but you might find one, but better for double-handed, just because of the weight of the boat when it comes to bringing it out of the water. And you know, we could mention how easy it is to right from capsized single-handed, but as we know from the research that has been taking place on Joyrider TV, using a righting bag or a righting pole system that works, even a heavier boat like a Pacific, you should be able to bring up single-handed using some assisting method like a pole or a bag or a combination of the two. So I think, is this the full list that we need of skeg hull boats which would fit the purpose? Yes, I believe it is pretty much. One we've missed, actually, which does get missed quite often, and it's sad that it gets missed, is the Hobie 15. The Hobie 15, really good boat for this kind of bracket. And the thing that's good about the Hobie 15, which I think is a little bit rare in this whole group, is it does what the roto-molded plastic boats do, but it's made from fiberglass and it's extremely durable. So a really good option for sailing. You could sail loads of volume in a Hobie 15. You could sail a Hobie 15 with maybe 4 people on board, or single-handed. Yeah, but with a Hobie 15, you're not going to get the same sort of performance out of these boats here. It's not going to be as quick. So there we go. So that is the asymmetric boat roundup. But the elephant in the room here is definitely the asymmetric hull. Did I say asymmetric for this? I meant skeg hull. If I did, apologies. But the elephant in the room is the asymmetric hull, and the ultimate choice has got to be the Hobie 16, because the Hobie 16, you can sail it with one person, two people, or as long as you're not going too much over, I don't know, 140, sorry, 160, 170 kilos, you can sail it with three people on board as well. I just did a coaching week with two Polish guys, and we were sailing the Hobie 16 3 up half of the time, and the boat performed nicely with three adults on board. But you can also sail a 16 single-handed, and it's not too heavy to bring out of the water alone. Yeah, so and that's the Hobie 16, great choice. And then the other choice would be, in the asymmetric, the Prindle 16 or 15, which does a similar job to the Hobie 16. It's just a different shape and a bit easier to sail. All right, there are some options. So just going through these options. Now, the big word on the street for which one to go for is cheap. And what helps a boat to be cheap is if there are loads of them available, which does make the Hobie 16 really rise to the top of the list, because there are more, I've said this before, there are more Hobie 16s in the world than every other single catamaran put together. I believe that to be true. I haven't actually been out into the world and counted, but if the numbers are correct, and I know that the sale numbers on the Hobie 16 don't relate to the amount of actual boats that there are out there, they relate to the amount of sales that have been produced. But yes, I do think there are more 16s in the world than every other catamaran put together, which means finding a used Hobie 16 is going to be much easier at the price that you're looking for than any other type of boat. There we go. Yeah, what would, so in the abundance field, boats that we're going to be taking out, probably not the Pacific, probably not the RS boats, less of them, not the Hobie T2, not very many of those about, not cheap anyway, because it's a relatively new design. These boats, the Darts and the Nacras, yes, possibly. Hobie 15, not very many used Hobie 15s around, but let's not write it off completely. So that is what I am saying for the main answer to this question. Jago also says he's considering as well the Hobie 18, more moving parts, more maintenance. Yeah, so some centerboard or daggerboard boats, the Hobie 18, yeah, if we're happy to have it slightly less maintenance free, then a Hobie 18, good choice. Hobie Tiger, or the Hobie Tiger, or the Nacra Inter 18. The Hobie Tiger and the Nacra Inter 18, this is a boat in Europe especially, which you might be able to find a good one for not very much, for relatively not very much money. Like, you might be able to pick up a decent Hobie Tiger for as little as 2,000 euros. And that is a really great boat. But because the Tiger and the Inter 18 were designed to be in the Formula 18, they were the first of the Formula 18 racing class, they're built a bit lighter, not as durable, and those dagger boards, because there is some wear that goes on every time you put the dagger board up or down, and there's more of a chance of striking the bottom because of a dagger board. They are going to require perhaps more maintenance over time. The other thing with those boats as well, and the Hobie 18, is they are a bit heavier, which we have to take into account if you're looking at sailing single-handed as well as with a friend. I thought I brought a drink. Oh my goodness, no drink. This is going to be a tough one, guys, but we're in here now. All right, so there we go. I think that is where I'm going to park that. There's some good options, but yeah, that I think of the list that Jago has put here, I would say he said Hobie 18, Hobie 16, Tiger, Nacra 570, and Nacra into 18. I would guess those are the boats that Jago has seen advertised on the internet. And so of those, I would say, in my opinion, the best choices would be the best choice out of these would be the Nacra 570 if you're going to be sailing more with others, or if it's going to be more 50-50, then the Hobie 16. There we go. Thanks very much for the question. I'm not going to lie to you. That's actually the only preloaded question that I've got for this week. So if you are in the live chat, shoot your questions in there, and I will answer the questions. All right. So in the live chat, we have got Ban Flex. Great to have you with us, Ban Flex. Lovely old job. All right. And Ban Flex says, hi, does a SL15, is it good for a 14-year-old? Yeah, I believe the SL, I'm not sure about the 15 specific. I think it's the 15 was actually designed as a youth boat. So if you are lucky enough to be able to find one, I think they were largely just raced in France. Probably about 10 to 15 years ago was when the SL15 was really being pushed as the youth class. So I think in France, perhaps Belgium, Spain, Germany would be the countries where you're more likely to find an SL15. But yes, it is designed specifically for a 14-year-old sailor. So I would say yes, absolutely. All right, Bobby P is on board. Hello, Bobby P in Jacksonville, Florida. And he's putting his hand up for the Topaz 14. Fine choice, the Topaz 14. Yes. Yeah, Bam Flex goes in there and says the Topaz 14 for solo, yes, but for double, I'm going to add a question mark to that statement. Yeah, depends on the weight, but these roto molded 14 feet boats are pretty high volume, which means that like a Topaz 14, two people, much more likely than even a Dart 15 fiberglass boat is designed to be either sailed single-handed or with two people. But if you're going to sail a Dart 15 with two people, they need to be pretty light people. I wouldn't want to be going much further north than, I would say, even 120 kilos as a double-handed boat there with the Dart 15. Okay. Bobby P says, thanks for all your help. You're very welcome. That's what I'm here for. I have 7 nautical miles logged since buying my first catamaran and about 50 hours of Joyrider TV watching on 2.0 speed consumed. Yeah, it does happen actually that when when I have time, after I've done one of these live Q&As, I will actually watch it back at 2 times the speed so that I can then write the what you call it, the timestamps for when the different questions are being addressed. And when you watch the Q&A back at 2 times the speed, it really does sound like I know what I'm talking about. And it's like, wow, this guy knows stuff. Yeah, so good choice. All right, Thomas is on board. Hello, Thomas. Great to have you with us as always. Okay, yeah, Aclass is with us, flying the flag for the Hobie Pacific. Good choice, if a little bit heavy. All right, Jim, channel member Jim is with us. Jim from Pittsburgh. Jim has a Hobie Pearl with a Jenica. Nice choice. For those of you who don't know, the Hobie Pearl was the replacement for the Hobie Pacific, but where the Pacific had skeg hulls, the Pearl then had the upgrade of having small spring-loaded centerboards, which made it a lighter boat with better windward performance. There we go. I want to convert it to an underpole bag system. Oh, okay. So you've got a rolling spinnaker, but you want to convert it to a, I'm going to have to take this down, to a sort of what you might call a more standard spinnaker system where you have a snuffer mounted on the side of the pole. Gotcha. Yeah, so now what I can foresee with this, Jim, as a potential issue is the actual sail itself, because I'm actually now a very new to being an expert in the field of the rolling spinnaker. For me, it happened first with the Minicat 420 with the rolling spinnaker, but then my eyes were really opened to the potential of the rolling spinnaker when I visited Nacra in Holland, where I sailed the 500 and 570 with these rolling spinnakers. And wow, that's all I could say about the rolling spinnaker. So good when it's a system that works so well. And this is news just in, is just today, in fact, this morning, I've been out for my first test sail. I have just built and fitted a rolling spinnaker system to Bad Boy 95, my Hobie 16, and it works. Spoiler alert, it works very nicely indeed. Yes, there will be a video coming out. Yes, it will be coming on Sunday of the first sail with this rolling spinnaker on the Hobie 16. Absolutely fantastic. The deployment of the spinnaker, I didn't even have time to time it. I think it's under 1 second to deploy the spinnaker. I'm going to keep I'd say this in the video as well. I'm going to keep calling it a spinnaker because there are many words that we could use. I'm going to call it spinnaker. That's just laying that out there. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely brilliant. So Jim wants to convert his rolling spinnaker to a spinnaker snuffer system. The rolling spinnaker, Jenica, is 15 square meters. All right, but you want to put a Tiger spinnaker on there. All right, so this is going to work, because what we can't do is a spinnaker that is a regular spinnaker like your Tiger spinnaker. There is our pole. You can't use for rolling because of the shape of the sail. A very full asymmetric spinnaker like that of a Hobie Tiger, it's not going to roll satisfactorily. If you took it to a sailmaker and asked them to recut it for rolling, maybe it would kind of roll okay, but it would never work perfectly because too much shape in the sail, it's not going to roll nicely. For rolling, you need to have a much flatter sail, and you also need to have a much more solid front edge. So on the Hobie 16 one that I've had out today, it's got I think it must be a 6 or 8 mil Dyneema reinforcing luff rope, which is good. Yeah, so what do we need to do to make this conversion, given that hopefully you've got Tiger Spinnaker, is we're going to have to fit onto the Spinnaker pole. Let's do the biggest stuff first. The plastic hoop of the snuffer, that will require either putting in with self-tapping screws or pop rivets. And then the soft part of the snuffer, that just velcros onto the pole, easy, and just ties on to be honest, you could tie it on to whatever happens to be back here. So that could tie on to your jib track. It could tie on to your dolphin striker. So nice and easy. What we'd then have to do is, I don't know, I think your halyard on the Pearl should be similar. So it should be all pretty straightforward. The retrieval line would then just need routing to come back here, back there, and then up the mast, ready to pull the sail up. So the actual fitting of the system isn't going to be too bad at all, given that you're going to be using a different sail. All right, I'm just scanning down to see if Jim has any follow-up on this question. Yes. All right. Yeah. Jim says the Jenica, the rolling system, it deploys nicely, but rolling it up is inconsistent and flaps upwind. Okay. So in my limited amount of experience, the 2 bits of advice I've got for getting a good roll on your spinnaker is the first thing is if it's windy at all, have the boat sailing quite deep downwind. So wind coming from the top there, have the boat sailing so that the mainsail is kind of sheltering the spinnaker from the wind a bit, so it's not under load while you're rolling it up. And then the second thing to have it roll nicely is to have a bit of tension in the sheet as you roll it. So that'll make it have a much tighter roll. So all the way, as soon as you start rolling it, bit of tension in the sheet. And that means your roll is going to be much tighter and you're going to have a much more satisfactory end result. And what I learned at Nacra was to roll the sheets around the spinnaker afterwards. So keep rolling until the sheets are all gathered up and wrapped around the sail, and that is the best that you can do. But if you're sailing in a strong wind, upwind, yes, this rolled spinnaker being up at the front of the boat is going to cause quite some drag. And if it's really strong wind, there is a chance that it's going to start opening up a bit, especially at the top, where that is where the roll is always going to be the loosest. Yes. Okay. All right. Back into the live chat, which is where we are. Yes. Hello. What else was I going to say about this? Can't remember. Okay. That's what it was. Okay. Lee's on board. Hello, Lee. Welcome to the Q&A live chat. And Lee says, on my Tornado. Yes, please. On my Tornado, spinnaker flying. Nice choice. Big gust. To depower, would you release spinnaker sheet and the main sheet, or spinnaker sheet and the traveller? I don't want to break my mast. No, very wise. I've tried that. And although my end result was reasonably favourable, I wouldn't want anybody else to suffer this same pain of a broken mast. So, yeah, when you're sailing downwind with the spinnaker up, to depower, the actual act of depowering is all in the steering. So the steering is what is going to take the power out of the boat for you. So if it's strong wind or gusty wind with some big gusts coming through, it really is sensible to keep your main sheet cranked in pretty tight all of the time, because it's having the main sheet in tight, which is going to protect your mast. And then when you get the big gust, as soon as you feel that big gust come on, you want to turn the boat more downwind. And as you're turning the boat downwind, just ease the spinnaker sheet out as well, because that's going to help to take the load off the bows. And the thing that's actually helping us to depower the most is by sailing the boat as fast as we possibly can. If we have the thing that's going to slow us down is having the sail in too tight. So as we turn downwind, ease the spinnaker sheet out, and then just we're just keeping playing the spinnaker. So big gust, crew eases, helm bears away. At no point should the spinnaker flap completely. It can curl at the front, but easing the spinnaker out, and don't loosen the main sheet, don't loosen the traveller. All of it is just steering and a bit of spinnaker sheet to make sure that the sail is still in the sweet spot, so that we're sailing as fast as possible. There we go. Because the worst thing that could happen, the worst thing that you could do, not that we're endorsing the worst thing. I've lost my tornado. Worst thing you could do is lose your tornado when you're talking about one. Here we go. God, I'm losing everything today. We've got our mainsail cranked in, which is pulling down on the back of the mast. That is what's giving our mast its protection, because the spinnaker is pulling from here. The hounds, where the rigging attaches, is here. So this section of mast is completely unsupported, other than the support that we're giving it from the mainsail. So let's say we got a really big gust of wind. Maybe you weren't sailing as fast as you possibly could. What will happen then, and like we talked about this last week when we were talking about sailing a C2 and feeling that every time there's a strong wind, we're pitching a lot. This could be because we're not sailing fast enough. So we get a gust of wind, and we don't respond by steering, which means that the bows are going to dig in. And if the bows dig in, and at that moment we release the main sheet, if you actually wanted to deliberately snap your mast, that would be the method to do it. Because when the boat slows down by digging the nose in, then the difference between the true wind and our boat speed, let's say true wind is 20, boat speed has just gone down to 5. That's 15 knots of mast snapping pressure. And then if we release our mast protection, that is really putting the mast into the metaphorical jaws of the lion that want to chomp it in half. There we go. All right. Duke is on board. Duke says, congrats on your spin, Lee. I agree. Yeah. Nice. All right. So Jochen is on board, channel member Jochen. Great to have you with us, as always. SGP Racing is with us. Okay. SGP Racing says, what is the optimal trimming for the jib with the kite up? I tend to sheet it out almost completely, but sometimes the jib top gets back winded, especially in light winds on a Nacra F18. Yeah, to be honest, I would say sometimes before putting the spinnaker up, the jib isn't really getting eased very much at all. But what we're looking to do, you know, if we've got the time to trim the jib as well as trim the spinnaker. So once we've got the spinnaker up and pulling and the boat is at speed. So actually let's backpedal a little bit and go for the whole process. We did a bit of process last week. We're going to do more process now. So there's our buoy. We're coming up to the buoy. So as we approach, we're making sure that the dagger boards are lifted. We've released the downhaul. We've released the mast rotation. We've got the tack line out. And then after the tack line out, I think that is a good time to ease the jib. And in terms of, you know, if you've been sailing upwind and you've got loads, you've got tension in the jib sheet, what I would look to do is just to release that tension. So I'm not saying we're going to just let the jib sheet off and it's going to fly and we're going to let the jib flap. I'd say let off about that much jib sheet. So if the clue of the jib, how do you draw a clue of the jib like that? If the clue of the jib on the upwind, if that's our jib car, has been almost touching the jib car, then let's have the jib car in the same spot. Then for the downwind, we're just going to have a few inches between the jib car and the clue of the jib. Sorry, this jib has got the wrong shape. As a starting point, because until we've got the spinnaker up and we're sailing at speed and we know how much, you know, how fast we're going to be going, what our angle is, you know, when we're getting used to it, we're not going to know exactly what the point is where the jib's going to be in the sweet spot. But this is a good starting point. And then once you've got the spinnaker pulling, then if you've got the ability to ease the jib, or you might have to pull it in again, then trim it according to the telltales. So we're just looking at the telltales. This is going to be revision for most of you. We've got telltales on both sides. The ones on the outside definitely should be flying. If the ones on the outside, the red ones, are flying upwards or not flying straight back, then we need to ease the jib out. If the ones on the inside are lifting, then maybe pull it in. But if the jib's not flapping and the inside ones are just lifting occasionally, that's going to be the best spot for the jib, so that we know the jib isn't oversheeted, but it's not so loose that it's flapping. But yes, we do want to have the jib in the correct position. And once you've done a few, you know, once you've sailed downwind one leg, as long as the wind is pretty similar, like if you're sailing around a course, on the next leg, you'll be able to think, okay, the sweet spot for the jib the last time round was there. So when you're in this spot and you're getting ready for the hoist of the spinnaker, you could put the jib back in exactly the same spot, or pretty much, and you know that you shouldn't have to adjust the jib much more. But the jib does get, I'm not going to say neglected, but I'm going to think neglected on the downwind leg when the spinnaker's up, because the spinnaker has such a big effect and the jib has a fairly minor effect when sailing downwind with the kite up. There you go. All right. I hope that's helpful. Jesse's on board. Hello, Jesse. Still enjoying your content. Super helpful to us newbies to these boats. Thanks for the time you put in. You are very welcome. And thanks for watching the videos. Without your efforts to watch the videos, I would stop making the videos because there would no longer be any point. But do watch the video on the rolling spinnaker on the 16 coming on Saturday. I think you're going to like that, and I think you're going to want one if you're into a bit of distance sailing or you're just going out for fun. If you're not racing, basically, it is going to be on the list. Sorry about that in advance. All right, Boris, channel member Boris is on board from Florida. Great to have you with us, Boris. As always, if you have a chance, would you talk about rudder alignment? Ooh. All right, just scrolling down. Couldn't finish the previous message. Okay, I have done the rudder alignment following your video about it, but was thinking if after doing the alignment your way, if we put the rudders in the up position, would that give us a more easier and accurate way for the measurements? Yeah, good question. So should you do your rudder alignment with the rudders down or up? Well, the let's have this boat. Two ways of doing your rudder alignment, of actually gauging how much in or out to put the rudders. One way is to measure it with a tape. So if we're measuring it with a tape, to be honest, I can't get my head round how you do that with the rudders up. So with a tape, you put the boat on the launching trolley, get the back of the boat off the ground, like pretty high up, so that you can put the rudders down, locked down. And if you're sailing a boat which doesn't have rig tension on it until you put the jib up, put the rig tension on first. Because when you put the rig tension on, the actual geometry of the boat changes slightly because the rig tension pulls the bows inwards, which means the back of the boat is going to come out, albeit a little bit, but it can be enough to make the difference, which will affect your handling. And then with the tape, we're going to go, here's the rudder stock. Just down from the rudder stock, there should be a bit on the rudder blade where it just sticks forward slightly. That is where I would take the measurement from, just a bit where it goes forwards a little bit. And so we put the tape between the rudder blades. You are going to need a friend to do this. Between the rudder blades at the front edge, and then we'll take that tape, move it to the back edge. And different types of boat are going to require different, basically the difference between these two measurements. So the measurement on the inside would always want to be either, if it's a very stiff boat or a modern boat, like a modern F-18 or a Tornado, then the rudders should be completely parallel, which means these numbers should be the same on the front edge and on the back edge. But if you're sailing a boat which has got a bit more twist to it, perhaps something that's not quite as precision, then the front edge of the rudders should always be minus a certain amount. So it might be as little as 0.5, like 5 millimeters, or it might be more. To be honest, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, But if I've meant in the rudder alignment Hobie 16 video, the numbers that I mentioned were correct at the time of recording. The other way that we can measure our rudder alignment is the method that I always used to use back when I used to race the Hobie Tiger class. And that was the method of the eyeball. Now, the eyeball, what we're wanting to do is when we're eyeballing the rudders, we have one of them dead straight. So, and somebody pointed this out earlier on this season, when eyeballing it to be dead straight, if you eyeball it from the front, then if you can see, so looking down from the bow, obviously make sure you haven't got anything in the way. From the bow, if you can see one side of the rudder blade or the other, then it means it's not straight. You want to be able to basically not be able to see the rudder blade for it to be properly straight. So eyeball it down there. And yes, if you had the rudder blade in the up position, it would give you a much better visual idea of what's going on there. So eyeball it so it's dead straight. And then with the Hobie Tiger and the older F18s, the thinking back then, which I always thought was right, it always felt right, I'm pretty happy that it's right, was to have the other rudder blade. Of course, after eyeballing this one, you want to make sure that it's not going to move one way or another. You just have to find a way. You could tie it up, or you could have someone hold it while you look at the other one. And the other one should just be in slightly. This is a bit of an exaggeration. And that other one on the old F18s would be pointing at the inside, basically inside the hull where the bow fitting is. Yeah, so there we go. That is what I would say about rudder alignment at this time on such a day as today. Thanks for the question, Boris. I hope that is helpful. Okay, Hussein. Back to the telltales from Hussein in Egypt. All right, just clearing the board. It's good to start off with a, what would you call it? A clean a fresh canvas or something. Okay, in a gust sailing upwind, the inside telltale will start flying up, but if the boat speed increases, it will be back to flying horizontally, as the apparent wind will be back in this direction. Right, so let's go with the big one. Sailing upwind. So sailing upwind, and our apparent wind will be in a, let's say in 10 knots of wind, our apparent wind in 10 knots of wind, our apparent wind will be about here. In less wind, it will be slightly more round towards the true wind direction, because we're not sailing quite as fast. But yeah, apparent wind about here. So in a gust, what is sorry, I'll just go back to this. In a gust sailing upwind, the inside telltale starts to lift, but if the boat speed increases, it will go back to its flying horizontally. I'm gonna have to say no on that one. So yes, initially yes. So this is the port side. So outside telltale, that's the starboard one here, flying straight back. Inside telltale, it's the one here, is going to be lifting a bit. Then if we start sailing faster, what's going to happen is we're going to create more induced wind. But if we're going to start sailing faster, but we're going in the same direction. So if we're sailing faster, but without altering our course, then this extra speed is going to bring our induced wind stronger, which is going to bring the apparent wind more onto the nose, which means that the inside telltale, wrong way around, sorry. The inside telltale is going to lift, sorry, that's probably confusing, is going to lift even higher because we are effectively sailing closer to the apparent wind. Now, the difference is going to be if we start doing what I'm calling chasing the telltales. So if we get a gust of wind sailing upwind, here we are, smaller scale, and the inside telltale lifts, then if we bear away to try to get that telltale back down, that is when we're doing this thing which I'm calling chasing the telltales. And then we're going to start going faster. And as we start going faster, our induced wind is going to get greater. So the apparent wind is going to come more round onto the bow, which means we're going to keep, if we want to keep that flying, then we're going to bear away more. So if sailing upwind, we keep sailing on the upwind course and we're going to keep sailing high, then the telltales this inside telltale should keep lifting all of the time. There we go. That's what I think. That's what happens. All right, just going to scan down just to see if Hussein has any more follow up on that one. Hussein does say, actually, can you please hit the like button? Yeah, take your spare finger and wherever your like thingy is located, just give that a little tickle, because what that does is it means that YouTube will then recommend this broadcast to more people later on, which is really good. It means more people watch it and we are spreading these great messages that are coming out today. Thank you very much for sparing us your finger at this time. Unless you are doing an oil change on your motorcycle while you watch the Q&A. And I would say in that case, you are forgiven for not hitting the like button. If you don't like this, hit the dislike button. Because apparently by hitting the dislike button, that does just as much good for the YouTube algorithm to recommend it, because it's all what is being called, what they're calling it, interaction, something like that. Anyway, all right. Okay, just going down. David, raffle winner. David is on board. Who is he's already started packing his bags to come back to Wildwind next year. Good start to the weekend to everyone. Greetings from Kiel in Germany. Nice to have you with us there. All right, Sander is on board. Do you have tips for telltales use when you don't have a window to see the other side? Yeah, that is a trick. Not when you're looking through the sail to see your telltales on the other side, especially if it's a fairly sunny day. Sorry, thanks very much to Jens. Hello, Jens, with the big hand. Channel member Jens for the super sticker, helping to keep the Q&A ad-free. Thanks very much. And if at any point you like any answer that is given, do feel free to hit a super sticker, because that helps to keep the Q&A ad-free. And it really lets me know that it was a good answer. Okay. Anyway, but this is optional, of course. Tips to see the telltales when you don't have a window. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything. You could put a mirror on the other side. No, you wouldn't do that. yeah, if it's a sunny day and the jib is on the wrong side of the sun, then yes, it's very difficult to see the telltale on the other side of the sail. There's no real fix for this. And I would dare say, if you've got a coloured sail without the little windows to see your telltales through, it will be even harder. So, yeah, unfortunately, Sander, I haven't got any tips for that. One thing you could do, if this is, it's not going to help that much actually thinking about it, is you could fit some telltales to the leech of the jib. Which side of this jib is what? Yeah, there's the mast. All right, so there's the mainsail. Put a few telltales on the leech of your jib. I wouldn't bother doing that if it's a Hobie 16 though, because 2 tacks and they're all going to get ripped off on the mast. But if it's a boat which has a jib which doesn't catch on the mast, you could just use some duct tape, or if you've got a bit of sail number like this insignia sticky sailcloth, and just some bits of wool or videotape or cassette tape, just stick some to the trailing edge. And then in the light winds, when it really matters, in theory, you're going to be further forwards on the boat anyway. Oh, so maybe this is a good point. You're going to be up here, which means you can see the trailing edge of the jib, which means that you can then, if you can't see through the jib, you could use these leech telltales on the jib. I don't think anybody does this, but perhaps we should. As a collective, we should start fitting leech telltales on the jib. People say, wow, where'd you get that idea? Joyrider TV live Q&A. Weren't you there? No. Okay. All right. So there we go, Sander. All right. Jesse says, we'll look into the rolling spinnaker on the Hobie 16. My friend wants one for his next project. Thanks. Yes. And yeah. So the first time out with the rolling spinnaker video will be on Sunday. And then I'm going to follow that with a how I put basically my own rolling spinnaker kit together. So you don't have to buy it as a kit from someone. Instead, I just sourced all the parts. I actually built my own pole out of 2 broken bits of pole because I didn't have any other pole available. Yeah, but super easy to put together, and all you need is the sail basically, because you can actually source the aluminium tube for the bowsprit itself. Yeah, so I'll be doing that as the next video in the series of fitting the rolling spinnaker to the 16. And of course, the one that everyone's going to want to see is the speed run with the rolling spinnaker. Oh yes, looking forward to that. All right, Boris says, I will try to explain myself better on your Facebook page. Thanks again. You just gave me another idea. All right, nice. All right, yeah, look forward to seeing you over there. Okay, Yen says, oh, look what's going on over here. Well, there we are. Okay, so Hussein says, I'll follow that up in the next question session, which I believe we have been going now for 70 minutes, and I didn't bring a drink. So that is that. Something very exciting, by the way, for anybody who is coming to either of the events that I'm going to be sailing in the USA, is I have just produced what is going to be a free gift for you when you register. And that is going to be, this is just the mock-up. Yeah, new calibration stickers to put on your mast. Yes, so you know how much to pull the downhaul. So that is exciting. I don't know if I should have kept that as a surprise because the actual stickers haven't arrived yet. So hopefully they will. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for hitting the super stickers, everybody who's been chipping in, keeping the Q&A ad-free. And I will see you on Sunday, where we are going to be rolling and unrolling. Thank you very much.